Right. Did we talk about this idea of brand equity in here? Well, what's brand equity? I feel like I talked about it in 3 minutes. What's brand equity? Good test question. Critical term, right? Yeah, the value of a brand, the kind of intangibles, that the thing you can't touch, but that you can monetize. Give me an example. Music is all about brand equity, right? Name and likeness stuff. Yeah, you can. If you have a powerful name and likeness, you can do what with that name and likeness? How we monetize it? Sell a poster, put it on a T-shirt. Robert Pattinson, right? That's the guy from the vampire movie, right? He's got a powerful amount of brand equity. That dude wants to lend his name or likeness to something, he's going to get a lot of money, right? So when we talk about brands, I think that the whole concept of brands has changed radically in the last 5 years, right? When you were little kids or before you were born, if somebody said, go get the best TV you can buy, what would you get? Sony, right? Everybody would get a Sony. They had built up this brand equity, which is kind of synonymous with the idea of goodwill, right? Another intangible. You can't touch goodwill, you can't touch a brand. Logo is different from a brand. A logo is a service mark or a trademark, right? They too can have brand. They relate to brand, but it's different. Don't confuse people say brand when they mean trademark a lot. But so 10, 20 years ago, whatever, you said you wanted a new TV, get a Sony, right? The best TV. What was Sony able to do with that brand equity?
Build trust.
Not build trust, they would raise the price, right? Because they had more goodwill than their competitors. People valued that brand. It was perceived value, right? So as you build that perceived value, you can charge for it. Robert Pattinson, does it say Patterson or Pattinson?
Pattinson.
Huh?
Pattinson.
Pattinson? Robert Pattinson has a tremendous amount of perceived value, a tremendous amount of brand equity and goodwill. Now, I just read my RSS feed the other day. There's some article about Tom Green. You guys remember Tom Green?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Tom Green, about, what, 5, 10 years ago, when was that show where the top 10 years ago, when he was running around curling up inside the intestines of a goat or whatever it was he did. He had tremendous brand equity, right? To the extent that he was able to make a movie, right? What was the movie? Freddy Got Fingered.
It's hilarious.
It lives on, apparently. I've seen it, but it's one of those things that I get this one. Yes, go ahead.
Would you argue about this brand equity with what's going on with the Saints right now? With,
Saints have massive brand equity.
Yeah,
We know this why.
The NFL is trying to sue over that.
They wanted who dat, right? They wanted to grab that piece of what? Oh, what is it? Generically, what is it? Intellectual property. They wanted the intellectual property, who dat, and they were going to try and trademark it, right? We're going to trademark this distinctive phrase, right? Claim it's some sort of slogan, as if nobody had ever said who dat before. I mean, what's the etymology of who dat?
It's like it's from an old blackface comedy from like the 1890s.
Name is it Andy?
No, it's like 1890s, like an old jazz.
It's from minstrel.
Minstrel stuff, okay, right. So it's this stuff that I thought that so it's in this kind of public domain. It gets attached to another brand, right? It got attached to the Saints. The Saints win. The Saints brand equity goes up and everybody wants a piece of their thing. Back to Tom Green. He gets all this brand equity. People know who he is. His name and likeness becomes very valuable. He makes a movie that, while it's become very popular now, I guess, at the time was a dismal failure, right? His brand equity goes, right into the gutter. Anybody watch Entourage? They have presented this whole show on the ups and downs of Vince's brand equity, right? That's all they're doing. So it's all about his name and likeness. Now Tom Green is gone, he's got some online show, what have you. His brand equity is way, way lower. He claims he doesn't care because he's able to do the things he wants to do. On the other hand, he says, yeah, I'd love to host the Tonight Show, even with all the restrictions and everything else I've loved. In any case, what happened with Tom Green when he went from up here to down here? Brand equity was lost. Why? Fundamentally.
Saturated market.
Saturated the market, which means what? What happened?
Too much time.
Alienated fans, so your relationship starts to change with that brand. Okay? And it's what happened with Sony too. Your relationships started to change with Sony when? What made the relationship with Sony and their customers change?
$1,800 TVs when you would buy it for $900.
Not just price. Sony for a long time was selling TVs at a much inflated price.
They just stopped.
Quality.
They stopped doing what they were doing. They're not good.
I think other competitors.
Other competitors is exactly right, but what about those other competitors?
Sold a better product
Runs
for
the
cheap.
money, the quality of the product.
How did we find out about those other competitors?
Our friend.
Really? How did we find out? I can pretty much guarantee anytime you say advertising to any question in this class, it's the wrong answer. Yeah. Okay, how?
Walmart.
What accelerated that?
What makes word of mouth?
What specifically?
Technology.
Walmart.
Here, Walmart. You're close on Craigslist. Customer reviews where?
Consumer reports.
Amazon. Right? That's you almost had it, right? First thing you do when you go to buy a TV, you don't look at the brand, you don't even look at the price really. You might glance at it, but what do? You scroll down, right? And if something gets, what does it have to get for you to buy it?
5 stars.
If something has 3 stars, what are you going to do?
Look at the next thing.
Something has 1 star, what are you going to do?
Nothing.
Right? So we've talked about it in other classes. At this point, everything's so out of sequence. Some of you guys have heard this, some of you haven't. 5 stars means that somebody's expectations were beat, right? I bought this and it did way more than I thought at a better price, blah, blah, blah. 5 stars, I write about. 1 star, my expectations have been de-seated, if that's a word, right? I hate this. I hate this so much I'm going to write about it. 3 stars, I'm surprised people write 3-star reviews right now. I don't get that. You know, I get going on there, I'm so excited about this, I want to tell people, or I hate this so much, I want to tell people. I don't get when people write 3-star reviews. Typically, they will write, this would have been a 5-star review, but for. It didn't have extra, am I wrong?
Yeah, no.
And then they reduce the stars. Right. So, in any case, those star ratings effectively killed the whole idea of brand as we knew them pre-Amazon. Right? So going back to this idea of brand, I think what it is trust. Right? And I'd say that in the management business, you got nothing else. Right? Your brand as a manager and your brand as a band, it's trust. And that trust doesn't just mean showing up on time for concerts or honoring your agreements, though there's that. It's trust that you're not going to put some horseshit piece of record out. Name me a band that's lost their brand because of that. Violated the trust of the customer. Creed? Green Day. Green Day because of, basically, just blatantly, if all the young dudes is not the Hoople is not getting royalties for the, are they, does anybody know? That 21, is all the young dudes? I can't believe that. In any case, so why has Green Day violated the trust? Sells to a different market. And that happens all the time, right? That happens all the time. The early adopters, those people at the early stage of our favorite curve, right? The people here By the time the band gets up here, these people don't follow, right? They stay down here waiting for the music. At some point, when you sell out, what is that essentially saying to somebody? You took the money, you sold out. You took the money rather than taking the thing you should have taken. I don't trust you. I trust that you will take the money rather than doing the right thing. I don't trust you. Now some people up here, they don't care, right? You see this with bands all the time. How is Kristen avoided? How does she navigate these waters? And she talking about trust and brand. You know that it's not even a question. You guys say this when we talk all the time. You hit these points, these impacts. Are you go this way or this way?
We always, we're faced with a choice on a regular basis, and we have to decide what's worth it. You know, and for us now, the choice is very clear. It's always worth continuing in the in the trajectory that we have gone. She's been doing this for 25 years. Now would be a hell of a time to sell out. It would just be saying, I'm done. I'm selling off. I'm selling the farm, and I'm going to move.
But the options have been there.
But yeah, they are there. I mean, I told you 2 years ago we had this publishing deal that we could have done, but it would have meant that we couldn't do anything with alternative copyright. And if we couldn't control the copyright, it wasn't worth us taking the payout of the publishing deal, which was like our last chance to do a publishing deal, where we could have just used a publishing company like a bank, taken the money and bought our house, and that would have been it. But it's so important to the artists that I manage to be able to continue being a producing, viable, integral artist. If she can't do that, she might as well be dead. She is, and I mean that very, very seriously. She equates that with life. She wants to be doing this when she's 60, 70, 80 years old. She wants to be making art. She wants to be making her music. And that's something that she knows that if she makes that trust-violating decision. What's great about the world now is that we can monitor the way our audience feels about the things we do, obviously. With the incredible ease of dialogue between the audience and us. Sometimes now we'll put the question out there, how do we do this in a non-shitty way? We'll often ask a message board, we want to do this thing, but we don't want to come across this way, and we don't want to offend all of you. So what do you suggest? How do we achieve this end? And it's amazing how people will help you preserve your brand. Your audience, if you empower them to do so, they will help you preserve trust. You can't, if you make yourself vulnerable, if you make yourself, as a brand, and as a company, let's say, make yourself vulnerable, it doesn't matter if you're on the verge of fucking up, or even if you do fuck up. What matters is that you didn't want to, and you want to make good. And that's the only way I know of, to preserve that trust, to preserve those relationships, to preserve the brand. Odwalla is just a phenomenal case. Odwalla Juice Company, they would have been long gone. You guys would not know who they were, because back in the 90s, a toddler died after drinking one of their apple juices. It was infected with E. coli. And they did everything right. Their CEO went out and contacted the mother of the child, offered a settlement. The mother didn't want money. She wanted only to know that Odwalla would make the changes that it needed to make sure that no other child could get E. coli from their juice. And this guy just laid himself out and just opened himself up and bled for the general public. And Odwalla exists. And it exists as a better company and as a more virtuous company. And people know that happened. JetBlue, a year or 2 years ago, they completely screwed everybody up and came out and did a real acceptance of the guilt. They didn't just pay lip service to this mishap that pissed off so many people and about which everyone knew, but they did a true mea culpa. They said, we screwed up, what can we do to regain your trust? What do we have to do to make it right? And they exceeded expectations in that way. Exceeding expectations with your product is one thing. Exceeding expectations in terms of decency and grace and making things right when you've screwed up is where the real talent is. Sarah, good question.
Yeah, have you seen those Domino's commercials?
Yeah.
Where they're just like, our pizza tastes like cardboard.
Yeah, a
and
big
the
story lately.
Sauce is like ketchup, and
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. The new pizza is horrifying. But I tried it. I
like
actually
the
did
crust
because of
better.
those commercials. I said, yeah, let's just give them a Domino's pizza. It tastes like they just started frying the pizza. I don't know why. They just went, fried stuff sells. So they just started frying. That is really
I think it's
weird.
pretty good.
They made it really fatty.
I like the
You like
I like
it?
the crust.
But the commercials were really amazing to show like this surveillance footage of somebody going, it's like cardboard. The sauce is like ketchup. It was just great. It was kind of shocking as a viewer to see that, right? You're like, oh, shit. But Hulu did it, yeah. Netflix.
Amazon did it, Jeff Bezos did it when they pulled off 1984.
From the Kindles. Yeah, he went out. I mean, you immediately take the lead on that thing, and we're off track.
No, it's okay, because it speaks to this idea of brand again, brand equity. If we think of it as trust, and we know that the reason that this relationship, these companies didn't all of a sudden become good people, right? They realized that the internet shines a bright light on mediocrity, that they can no longer fool people, okay? So if you can't fool them, if the conversation is going on, join it, right? You're better off that way, joining the conversation.
I have to say, in the early days of the internet, I was embarrassed a few times, and it's amazing what an indelible impression that makes. When I said something that I might have said in the record business to someone else, thinking it was more expedient to not tell the whole story or to give the excuse answer, and immediately I learned that people make you very uncomfortable, almost instantly. They come back like, well, why? They're just like a 2-year-old who says why every time you say, well, this is why. Well, why? Well, because I said so. Well, why? That's a bad answer. Well, and immediately you're faced to confront the weakness in your position, product offering, business model, whatever the hell it is.
Right. So, as this, and I'm curious, what bands have managed to get big and maintain the trust of their brand?
Well, George, I don't know what band might that be. It's on your mind right now.
Well, I think I already know. Although I think they've lost it. I think they've regained it more recently, but I think they definitely lost it.
They played on the edge.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, for me, the Clash.
Fish.
Fish, okay. I mean, they stopped, or Trey made them stop. There's a biography, I guess, I read some excerpt, where Trey read or watched some videotape of some show and just said, we're done.
Yeah,
Stop.
there's a bad review of one of those shows.
There was a review or
Yeah.
something. But, that level of quality control, have they regained trust? I don't know. But sometimes stopping is the right move.
Well, that goes back to grace. Know how to.
I think that's what REM did. They just kind of went away for a couple of years.
They should have gone away. They put out some records that I think by their own admission that they should have.
But there wasn't really.
Round the Sun never should have come out.
How about somebody like YouTube? They did the iPod deal. And it's like, we're not getting any money from this, but we're getting our name out here, but it's like selling out. I don't know. You got an
It's an
iPod.
interesting case.
If you have an iPod after yourself, I consider that selling out, regardless if you get money.
I mean, it's still a case. They are a very interesting case because they started with, for the early years, they only had a lot of the early part of the curve, and then they just kept turning over the people at the top of the curve.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like that's sort of where they rest. They're like a fashion band.
But a lot of bands do that. I mean, so U2 with Boy in October and War and then Unforgettable Fire, in the name of love, they cross the chasm, and then Joshua Tree catapults them into megastardom. But then they changed. I mean, Pop was not a good record.
Yeah.
There were a number of records in here that didn't work, and then the one with the Beautiful Day kind of put them back up here. They're great at reinventing themselves. Madonna does this. I don't think we don't do it anymore, but for years she used to just ride that curve. You can argue Paul McCartney invented it, But you know, I mean, I think of the bands, somebody shot this out and I retweeted it, you know, Ian MacKaye and who's the other one? Some other one that knows more about the current music business than Clive James.
Oh, right.
You know, those people, and you always, if you think about brands with trust, it's pretty easy to think about these bands, these artists that resonate. And I tell you what, the management behind them, the alignment is so close, right?
Right.
You know?
Well, you have the same values, period. You know, to me, there's a seamlessness between management and artists at that point, where they're just two facets of the same thing. You know, we're two sides of the same coin.
And so both of you, when you talked about your management stuff, it sounds more like you're kind of factotum, right? It sounds like more your gophers in a way, and that's okay, you know? At what point do you start going beyond just kind of helping out where I can and getting more into the strategy?
To that point, I have to say, like, you're not alone. I mean, every new manager that I talk to, you know, everybody who's working with a new band is trying to do something sort of from the ground floor. You just end up in this. It's very easy to end up in that position where you are.
It's not criticism, but
Right. It's just where you're doing everything that either they don't want to do or that they can, right? And it's just a tough position to be in. At some point, you have to decide a lot of this boundaries. What are their responsibilities? What are your responsibilities? You know, how you're going to formalize this relationship and make it so that you're getting something done instead of just putting out, instead of running around red ass kind of doing whatever you need to do.
and I think that's the expectation thing. I want to talk about that for a minute. I mean, when you sit down with this band, what are the questions that you should ask? You know, and I go back to, this is the one that always hits on me. Are you band playing live? Are you able to tour, right? And if the answer is yes, we're able to, but we're not, something's wrong, right? And you've got to get to the root of that.
Yeah, we need to speak a little bit more about that because it's like, it's not a, I know that I've heard George say, you know, I will not manage a band that doesn't tour. And I know how that hits some of you, like, you know, well, why not? I don't get it. You're going to help them tour. No. A band is not touring even though they can tour. They're saying something about their acceptance of responsibility. They're saying something about their initiative, about their commitment and their desire to get something done. They would put themselves in harm's way if they had no choice but to play out. I mean, the bands that I've worked with over the years, whether I met them as baby bands or not, I've learned about them that they were pains in the ass to every club in town, to every band that came to town, getting their demos into everyone's hands and begging for shows themselves, the band themselves. There was no hierarchy that they would look to solve the problem for them. They did everything themselves just to get playing. They had to play in front of people. And it's a troubling sign. It's like a worrisome thing if a band isn't already busting their asses to like nail down every possible opportunity to get up in front of people.
That's it exactly. When you think about the values, you know, yeah, we'll tour, but we can't book the gig, or Joey has to work. You need to see that not touring as a symptom of some greater problem, right? And when I say touring, I'm not talking about getting 200 days here. It's like, if you're in New Orleans and you're not playing Memphis or what? I don't know.
Birmingham, Houston.
Something. And my speculation would be, you're not ready for a manager. You're just not, because you're not just sitting there looking at each other, right? Well, I don't know what and then you do resort to, okay, well, I'll go make some flyers. You know?
We talk about this all the time. A manager is for when you can't do it for yourself anymore, right? So if you're a prospective manager, you want to see the band really they can't handle it anymore. They've got so much going on. They're so busy. They're so packed with responsibilities that they need to offload some responsibilities, and the ones that you can take off their hands, you'll be taking off their hands.
Then I think you get into more subtle stuff like, okay, what is your willingness to engage with things like technology, right? What are you willing to do? Are you willing to have a Twitter presence as a band? And if the answer is no, it doesn't necessarily rule it out, but it will tell you you have to have a partner that's, as manager, you need a partner that's complicit, not somebody that you're dragging along. My advice would be look for partners, look for bands that are open. Hey, we'll try it. I don't know, we've done it, but we'll try it and make a good faith effort. If they're biased and, look, man, we just write the song, you handle that thing. It won't work. It won't. And I know that puts a heavy burden on you musicians, but like, I don't want to be on Twitter. I'm not necessarily saying you have to be, but the band needs a presence there until the next thing comes along, and who's going to do it? And if it just falls on the manager, he, can only tweet about this or that gig so often.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you
Well,
and Chris have
It's a bad situation when the manager is the Twitter presence. I will cite Andrew Bird's Twitter feed.
Does Andrew do it?
It's just promo. It's
It's an RSS feed.
It's just an RSS feed basically. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of presence. I don't get it.
Try and bring up this. Keep talking.
It's just rough. I think that I said this. I spoke to this in an earlier class. Not everything will resonate with an artist. Not everything will be a good idea. But an artist, as George was just saying, who's open to trying new things, will land on some things that are productive. And I also believe in carving up responsibilities. If one of you doesn't want to tweet, then someone maybe can or does. Feel free to carve up responsibilities among band members. If somebody wants to deal with the mailing list, somebody wants to deal with Twitter, somebody wants to deal with the Facebook page, somebody wants to deal with the emailing list, the email list. It's okay to carve up those responsibilities. And if one person is doing it all, to compensate that person for doing it. I think that this stuff needs to be done.
And I would say, just like, look, I mean, Twitter is what it is, right? You can like it, hate it, whatever. I really don't care. It's like, like touring in a way. If your band is unwilling to try something like this, that's a symptom of a bigger issue.
And my point here is, where's Andrew? Like, where's the person in this feed?
This is an RSS feed.
Where's exactly?
It's an
Where's
RSS
the
feed.
person?
It all starts with commands.
Hey,
Yeah.
remember,
Do.
tune in.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an RSS feed, and yet he's got 17,000 followers. So, I mean,
Can we contrast that with Kristen's feed?
yeah.
Which will be maybe embarrassing to me, I'm not sure, but
So, her blood pressure feed was amazing.
yeah. She went for a physical. So
They gave me a tetanus shot. No lie.
they gave me a tetanus shot. No lock shot for me. I'm going to find a rusty nail and try it out.
And this is a conversation, going back to the Mark, it's a conversation. Kristen follows all of 2 people, it's really.
She follows 2 people and she has
33,000
followers.
Why does she only follow 2 people?
She uses Twitter in a broken way. I think I talked about this. She broke it. They love her. Twitter loves her. They verified her, and they think she's a great use case. But it's because she just tweaked it for herself. She doesn't like a stream full of @replies, disjointed communication. She likes the fact that it looks kind of like a conversation or a poem, a one-sided conversation or a poem even. Even if it's just silly stuff. She really likes to minimize noise. And we talked to somebody from Twitter at a gig we did in San Francisco. Oh yeah, that neighbor, that's a true story. Neighbor guy, gang. I set all these I set your all stuff on fire. I'm sorry. Was it good stuff? That actually happened. The Twitter person we were talking to, we said, do you guys just hate us? Because we totally busted it. It's not very two-way. But what they know that no one else knows is that Kristen DMs everybody who @replies her.
But that's the weird thing. So she'll DM me, I can't DM her back.
No.
So then I have to reply,
Yeah, I know. It's really
What is
messed up.
DM?
Direct message.
How
It's
do you
like-
do that? I can't figure out how to do that yet.
Well, you have to be, the person has to be following you, and then you can send them a direct message. You can just put a D and the screen ID, the Twitter ID, D GAH 650, George, and then you can send him a direct message. But he has to be following
Here, I'll do it.
I don't like all the stuff either. With all the funny colored letters and the
Yeah.
symbols and the.
It can be
It's
jarring.
not that complicated. There are only like 3 things that you have to
Ugly
learn.
though.
Huh?
It's ugly.
Understood. Go ahead.
When you're twittering, like, you know, Kristen is, it's like a personal thing, and like Andrew Bird, straight up feed, but like it's very personal. But like when it's a band, it's like a brand that's like nobody's a specific person, and you're tweeting out, I love those chocolate sprinkled donuts. Who's saying they love the chocolate? You know, like, how do you make it personal?
That's a good question. I think you can just say, you know, Jerome loves chocolate sprinkled donuts.
Band
You
Galactic
can
has a
say
good
that.
Twitter.
But the bottom line is you need to make us like you before you can sell us anything. I said this.
I like that a lot. Yeah. So, but again, you know,
Galactic Funk.
this would be a bad Twitter. Galactic? Galactic Funk.
But there was a girl at Madame who spoke, right when we got there, she was
Emily, right?
Amanda Palmer.
Oh,
Right,
Emily.
so Emily was my student at Northeast.
Oh, it was Amanda who spoke or Emily?
It was Amanda,
Okay.
her ukulele.
Yeah.
She sang Creep on it. Pretty kick ass.
Yeah.
But she was kind of talking about getting in between, like, tweeting, I just got a chocolate sprinkled donut, and, like, you're just being free. Like, you don't want to just be talking about useless shit, but you want to, like,
It's a ratio.
kind of a median.
It's a ratio. You know, you need to be a human being, and then you can promote. You can also
Yeah.
promote. It gives you license to promote once you've been a human being.
Yeah, I don't think even that's what thinking about. I mean,
Well, yeah, you just have to be decent. You have to know what's right.
I'm certainly not always decent. I mean, for me, I would say all in, you know, but it's just, I think that the only way you or your band or whatever is going to ever get into it is if they get somebody who with it. I mean, just as Billy said with Kristen, if Kristen was forced to act compliant, she'd stop.
She'd walk away from me. Yeah, yeah.
And that would
And
be-
yet she loves DMing everybody. Anybody who replies her, she DMs them because to her it's like passing notes, number one. Number two, it's an opportunity to be personal with every single person. You know, a couple hundred a day she'll do. She'll fucking chip on her phone. You know, like, you know, but it's because she really, really wants to pay them back for paying her attention. When they pay her attention, she feels like they've extended themselves, and she needs to extend herself back.
I really don't want this to be a Twitter lesson, but, you know, Kristen aside, this is a good sign to me. When I see this, you know, it means that it's a conversation.
Yeah.
Kristen is making a conversation offline. We're not able to see it. But this to me, she's reading her tweets, she's sending stuff back to people, right? That's what the accent will mean if you don't know. And I think it does speak to values. Can you really, as a band, say, I don't want 387,000 followers. I don't want the ability to get this out. I mean, you don't have to like it, right? And you can, as Kristen has done and other people, you can kind of tweak it your own way. But as a manager, I can't imagine a manager not having this on their list of things to deal with the band. It should be part of these pre-contract conversations, preferably over some sort of alcoholic beverage. You sit down with the band and you say, what do you think of Twitter? And how they respond to that will help. It's a good kind of litmus test question. If they say, what's Twitter?
I asked, well, that's a bad sign. If they were unwilling,
If they say, I hate that shit,
I'd ask them what was going to replace it if they're not going to do it. You know, what you get from Twitter, what are you going to use to make up for that lack? You know, how are you going to speak to enough people to create the bonds that you can create in a couple of keystrokes from Twitter?
but I think what I'm trying to get at is like, back to like, how do you determine if the value is aligned? And it's like, if I'm looking at somebody, if I'm looking to hire somebody for something I'm working on, I want to see if they're on this stuff, right? I'm going to see what their Facebook page looks like. I'm going to look at this, because it tells me what their value their sensibilities are, right? And you've got to find, you have to find your own. I don't know what yours are. If I'm going to manage a band, I want to see this, right? Because then I can do something.
Well, you know what's funny also, you can gauge their values just by following.
By following their tweets, right? So I'm just trying to give you some, I'm not, again, it's not Twitter, I do that kind of color. What?
It's kind of.
Yeah, but the point is that I want it to be, use this, what are some other things? The touring one is one, Twitter, text generally is one. The other one I would say, when you're sitting down in these pre-contract conversations, how many people on your email list? Right? The answer to that question is going to tell you an awful lot. We don't have an email list. Don't manage them. Don't manage them, right? Guys, let me buy you a drink. I'll leave it, right? If it's, okay, yeah, we just started with this thing, we're getting everything, then you can do something with that. If they don't have an email list, it means they're probably not going to be a willing partner, right? You know, if they haven't convinced themselves that they need an email list, how do you convince someone of that? They're a hobbyist, which is totally fine.
That's right.
What else questions can you ask to try and like break through it?
I think that you have to have fairly explicit conversations about their expectations for the next few months.
Right, so expectations.
Near term, midterm.
Yeah, so, you know, we can get to that.
Where do you want to go? You know, I mean, if they're totally high, you can't do it.
Okay, so yeah, so expectations, you know, that becomes the other thing, and it does relate back to that. So what do you want to do? What is your goal? If it's to get signed by a label, if that's the first thing they say, really want to manage that here? I think that's going to present a lot of challenges for you, because then their expectations of what you should be doing with your time, hey, why didn't you send that demo to do? Did anybody watch the Rangers last night? Nobody. Did anybody? What did you think? Oh, what did you think? The green shirt. You got your hand up. Did you like it?
I like some of it. A lot
What
of
did you like?
I like the Dave Matthews Band performance. Some of the performances are really good. I like the development good, but some of the stuff where it was like Black Eyed Peas, Beyonce, it was entertaining, but it got too much into the performance of it. And it was focused on the music and the band.
Pink swinging around,
Yeah, and that's
surfed
it.
it on pink, right?
Yeah.
But it's no creativity.
Well, I mean, everyone stole everything from Michael Jackson.
Okay.
So all of the
Michael Jackson stole everything from James Brown, so.
Well, but like all the stuff.
He stole everything from Little Wizard.
Everything was taken right out of This Is It. Like Beyonce's Army, that was straight out of the movie. Like he did that, and like when in Black Eyed Peas,
That's exactly
when
what
they came out of the stage, that was straight out of the movie. Like so many people, and I don't know. There's like a lack of creativity in the industry that was pretty
Well, see,
presented in the performance.
Is that
By
the
some of
industry?
them.
I mean, that's the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
right? I don't think it's the industry. It's the entertainment industry. That's fine. But if that is what your band is aspiring to, I want to be up on that stage doing that thing. And look, Kings of Leon won, and irrespective of what you think of Kings of Leon right now, and they are somewhere on a bad place on this little chart right now, as far as I'm concerned. And they used to be here, you know, but they're a rock and roll band, you know. I mean, something's not quite right. Their brand is getting a little weird, yeah.
The Grammys to me are kind of a sign that, you know, things that I can't like that band anymore because they're going down that path. Like The Roots. The Roots won a Grammy for Things Fall Apart. It was a great album, but then the next album came out, Tipping Point, and it was garbage. Because they won the Grammy, they're appealing to a wider audience, and it's just going to be crap.
Well, I ask myself why the Grammys aren't more like the Oscars. I mean, why are our awards, and it's not ours, it's the entertainment industry. It's the entertainment industry's awards. But you know, music awards are focused on commerce and you know.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to tell. The awards that any of us care about aren't televised.
And you know, and yet, you know, the Oscars are gigantic, but something that has incredible artistic merit will win an Oscar. Something that is that is judged by its peers to be of value, you know, will find a place in the Oscars, can find a place in the Oscars. The Grammys are completely uncredible in that regard, and I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why, but Naris is sort of created this horrible beast. So, all right, but to say it's where America celebrates music is offensive.
Yeah, really. It's not our music business, right? And I don't know what it is, but it's another one of those questions that I think you can ask. And look, by the way, anybody out there that wants to manage the Black Eyed Peas, right on. You know, I got no problem with that. I don't know exactly how to teach that type of thing or how that works. You know,
It's like going to work, getting a job for, you know, at IBM. You know, start copying documents for a gigantic company that does that kind of.
right. So my bias, my expertise is for the people that want to take a band that's at a kind of small level and raise them up, where they can sell millions of records, but how one manages the Black Eyed Peas or does that trajectory.
I had a little window into that world last year, and it's as distasteful as it sounds. I mean, I sat at their agency and talked about Beyonce and the Black Eyed Peas for an afternoon, and it made me virtually suicidal. And it was terrible.
Even with Apple the app?
It was just embarrassing because really, because it seems like it's very blatant and bold-faced. Bald-faced. What they do is they find the biggest check and they put it together with the artist. I mean, the way it was put to me was, it's my job for the Black Eyed Peas to say, to address Pepsi when they come to us and say we have $10 million for the Black Eyed Peas. And I go to the Black Eyed Peas and I say, Pepsi has $10 million for you. And then the Black Eyed Peas tell me that it needs to be more, and I go to Pepsi and I say it needs to be more. And then Pepsi writes me a check, and I take that check and I hand it to the Black Eyed Peas. They don't talk about taking their whack. But that was the conversation when we were there talking about new media and about ways of creating bonds with the audience. And it's nothing further from their minds. They asked me what Pitchfork Media was and what.
I like them for that.
Yeah, well, but they had no idea at all.
What's Pitchfork Media?
Pitchfork?
Big big online music magazine. Used to be an offline magazine. It's a huge source for indie music news.
Go there, pitchforkmedia.com.
Pitchforkmedia.com.
It's an example of a dude in his Chicago apartment starting up a blog, and they get, I knew the stats at one point, many millions.
Yeah, and the magazine was great. It got sort of crazy when it became a blog because then all the contributors, it was chasing down whatever was hot or happening. You know, obviously the amount of throughput has to be huge for it to be violent.
Broke our big fire. All right, so you go through those elements, the things that we talked about. Again, my goal is to get to the value alignment and expectations. Artist role. We talked about what is the manager going to do, and I think the right answer to that question is, I'm going to build your brand equity. Right? I'm going to use whatever I can to get more people to value your creative output. Right? If I do that, all sorts of things open up, including signing the label section. Artist roles. What are they going to do in this situation? And again, if the answer is we're going to write our songs, man, I don't think it's going to work. That's the great myth that the manager comes in and then they can just take all the business stuff and let the artist be creative. It's a big part of it. I think here's the situation. Yes, he does not do the stuff you do, but he does do some stuff that's beyond writing the song.
Well, the fact is that she did everything that I did for a long time. I mean, she was the band's manager before before she had a manager, and she knew what was important to do. She did all the things that you hope a band tells you they're doing.
I think that's a really important point. These new bands that want a manager, they need to self-manage. Because if they don't, how can they possibly judge whether you're doing a good job or a bad job? They think you're just going to come in as a miracle worker and do something. So you don't want to manage the band too early on. let them have to do something. Length of agreement, we'll talk about term, we'll talk about manager's compensation, all that stuff. All right, let's take a few minutes. But I think that at the worldwide development conference in June, there'll be another much bigger one that's much more like a little run OSX. But I think in terms of killing the Kindle or really marketing Kindle, they've done it brilliantly. Made the Kindle look just stupid.
Was that just the goal? Kill the Kindle?
No, I think it was to get into this space so that they could iterate, just like they did with the iPhone. The first version of the iPhone isn't in great shape either, but it changed the world.
Yeah, with the Kindle, you had like that screen, it's easy to read, you know, like,
Have you read the iPad?
You don't
Have you read it? I do, the e-ink. Have you read anything on the iPad?
No.
I bet it'll be better.
You know what? The Kindle and the Kindle. I have a Kindle and I have a Kindle 2 and an iPhone.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I do most of my reading through the Amazon Kindle app on my iPhone.
Okay.
Because of two main things. One, my iPhone's always with me. My Kindle is not always with me. So if I have 15 minutes in the doctor's office, I can just sit there and read. It's backlit. So if I'm reading in bed and my wife's asleep, I'm reading in bed at whatever font size I want. I can set the font size so it's comfortable. Whatever. The other thing is that page turn, there's no delay. There's no delay in the turn of a page. The Kindle does that weird blackout kind of, it makes me feel like I'm having a seizure when I turn a page, but it doesn't need to do that. You know, you can pull the page along on the iPhone, you can see two pages at the same time. It's kind of one, it's instantaneous, it's smooth and completely seamless. And it's like, because of that portability, I'm reading more books on my goddamn iPhone because I have the Kindle app than I am on the Kindle 2. I don't think I've read one whole book on the Kindle 2, but I've read 7 or 8 books in the last 3 or 4 months on my iPhone. It's crazy.
Kindle's a disaster. And you know, the iPad, game changer. I mean, think about newspapers. Total game changer for newspapers compared to the Kindle.
Do you think they changed the name?
The iPad, maybe?
iPad?
What was
My
that?
sense is they didn't even, I don't think anyone of the jobs probably knew the name until the night of the day. It's not branded iPad anymore. I thought it was going to be Canvas. I was pretty sure
I
it was
read like months ago when like the rumors started that they wanted an iPad and they could get the rights to it in every country but the US because there's already an iPad in the US.
Tab. I write tablet.
iPad.
All right. Anyway, many of you will buy them.
No.
Bottom line.
What does it do that's Apple does? I mean,
Well, have you seen the movie? Did you watch the movie online?
put it in.
Sorry.
I saw something online that said that iPad
Discs
sounds
are
like
the
iPod in
cassettes.
England and is unpronounceable in Japan.
Yes.
All right. Well, look. Interesting conversation. It was great. Where's Kenny want this?
Sean, that's another artist. Not here when it's Sean.
Collecting current events at the break. So Sean, since he's not here, can't defend himself. Talking about somebody that wants to manage his band, and he doesn't really know what she should do, blah blah blah. So he was smart enough to say, okay, look, I want to do a little test. Get us a gig at South by Southwest, and if you do that, that shows man. It's not a fair test, right? So as we're talking about it, I said, well, how many, this is just going back to the idea of what you should be talking about in these conversations. How many emails, Sean, do you have on your email list? 40, okay? Hey, Lumps is a really good band, I think, right? They play out loud and stuff. Yeah, I mean, 40 email lists, something's deeply wrong.
That's no email list. You don't have
Nothing.
like your girlfriend and her friend, and then everyone else's girlfriend and their friend. That's it. You've got 40.
Or, yeah, just some random, it's weird, plus spam, In any case, so I mean, for me, at that point, the manager goes in, asks that question, says, okay, you have 40, give me 3 months, see if I can get you 200, 100, you know? And, because you got 40, what Billy says, that's probably just random error. You know, let me do that for you. What's the website look like? Are you selling anything off the website? No. Okay, I'll get that set up for you. And this leads to kind of commission too. Well, she apparently wants to be paid. I don't think managers should be paid a salary, right? Managers need to have incentive to get a commission, typically 15%. But if this young lady gets a website up, starts, maybe the goal is I will sell you 100 copies of your CD, right? $10 a pop. I brought in $1,000. I want half. What does Sean have to lose with that? I want $500 for that. And maybe from 101 to 500, she only gets 35%. Eventually, it kind of scales down. But you got to find these things. And so I want to talk a little bit now about.
It's just about being realistic. You know, it's about setting thresholds and expectations that are realistic.
And figuring out stuff to do too.
The projector shut down. I thought it was an interesting conversation to have, though, because Sean was describing this woman who's like a recent graduate of this program. She lives in Austin. She's just trying to help out and stay close to the band so that if they get something going, good things start to happen, she can step in and really help out. But the thing is, she could be taking a much more active role and ensure that she has something to step into by doing sort of a very manageable set of fairly simple tasks.
Well, and I think that's, going back last class, we talked a little bit about this, that good linchpin idea. As a manager, you need to make yourself indispensable, right? If I talk about, you can have whatever term you want. Artist wants to fire you, you're fired, right? And you can sue them, breach contract, everything else. You're probably going to win. And even if they lose, how's that relationship work? You got a 1-year term or something, 4 months into it, they fire you, you go through the courts, it'll take a year to get through it. What?
To me, it seems like the linchpin idea and the level 5 leadership idea just totally aren't congruent.
How so?
If it's a linchpin, it's not going to work with you. That's the whole idea of a level
Why not?
5 leader. Why?
Why isn't a linchpin work with
If
you?
the level 5 leader leaves, then he's made it so that somebody else can come in and take his
Oh, I
place
see your
and
point.
everything.
So a true linchpin would hold the organization together, but also set up the organization for a successor, right? That means they got to find another linchpin, which ain't easy, and it's not easy for a level 5 leader to say, okay, look, I'm going to build this thing up, but it's not about me. This is what Billy was saying last time. It's about the organization, and a linchpin can absolutely be a level 5 leader. Okay. So when we talk about the role of a manager, again, now we're veering into business plan here. Strategy, what I like about this slide is the treacherous landscape of the marketplace. It is treacherous out there. It absolutely is. Right? And it's treacherous because, I think of it as a mountain range, and if you don't help them, you will fall off. You'll fall off the mountain. You'll fall down this curve, right? So managers, to get you up here, you don't do this stuff, you will slide down the curve. And, it's treacherous, it's slippery, you kind of Cornelius. So, what you got to sit there and ask is, what a long-term goal, and this is really the crux, if you're looking for an A in the class, at the end of the, your final project, what I read through and look at the most is this part. Can you set goals, figure out where you are currently and where you're going to be at the end, right? What is the gap? And the projects that get A's, and I will flesh this out, we're still only 3 weeks into the semester, I will tell you exactly what I'm looking for, but I like just seeing several pages of gap analysis stuff. The band has 25 people on their email list. The goal is for the band to have 200 people in 3 months. The strategy to go from 25 to 300 is to install the content for email widget on the web page. In order to do that, we have to create a web page. In order to put the content for widget on it, we have to get it made. Just break it down, okay? And so figuring out that gap between current performance levels. Don't think about, how well the guy's playing the guitar. If you don't like that, what's that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think you need to be able to make this science. It's not, if you can't make it science, then you can't reliably create the steps that you need to go through to make it happen.
That's right. What steps, what strategies are you going to use to close this gap and where it is? And that implies that you figure out where it is and that you're honest. You haven't yet gotten to confront brutal truth but never lose faith. But dear Lord, there's no more relevant answer in the music business today. You look at the Grammys on one hand, you've got this entertainment industry, and then on the other hand, you have all these little tiny disparate molecules of bands all floating around. Nobody really selling anything. People grabbing for what they can get. It's a weird, and nothing in the middle. It's a weird reality. But I'm frankly very optimistic. So again, this is the final project. All the rest is just simple. Describing who the band is, describing what series of action plans or concrete steps need to be taken to execute the strategy. This is management. Can you pull back at the 25,000-foot view and go, hey, this band is here in its life, little trajectory, and then zoom down to tree level and go, to get out of this forest, you need these steps. Can you create a set of measurable objectives or short-term goals so that you know from week to week, month to month how things are going?
Yeah, everything is about eliminating vagaries. It's about making everything concrete, making everything measurable, getting rid of as many vagaries and non-specific items as possible.
And I really mean that about kind of weekly stuff. Every company that I've ever worked with that does not have some sort of weekly kind of checkup eventually just drifts off. And it sounds bad and lame that we have to do that, but it's the only thing I found that works, that you put something on the book. At this time, every week, we're going to check up, because you know that at the very least, the 20 minutes before that call, everyone's at least going to do something. And it may be the only thing they do all week, but you get 20 minutes out of it.
I used to tell bands all the time, doing 10 minutes a day is totally worth it.
Totally worth it.
10 minutes a day is fine.
And so if you want my, what so many of my calls are, the amount of Google spreadsheets I have floating out there that have these categories. Every week, right? So, week 1, week 2, etc. Email number, X. You want this to be this. Twitter followers, X. You want it to be that. Facebook fans, X. Site traffic. So you need to understand Google Analytics, right? And every week, it's got to just keep going. Now, it's not going to be exponential every time, you know what I'm saying, right? Can you do that? This gets you to some sort of metric, because this will eventually lead to this. It will. Whether that it leads to that via subscribers, ticket sales, merch, downloads, something. If you keep increasing these things, now, a year from now, maybe this is changed into something different, right? These are our measurements. Twitter, Facebook, site traffic, and email. Okay? You could put, you could have gigs, you could have CD sales, whatever. What are the things that matter? These, to me, are inviolate. Every band should be trying to change this for the better. gigs and download sales too. I mean, what else do we have to measure?
Because there is no more industry, it's only business, right? And you don't have a ready-made market to go do your tap dances from. You need to amass a market. You need to build your own market, and that table is your market. That's your audience. Those are the people you can sell to. And the music industry has blown up, and we're 10,000 little music businesses. And I think that's the prime value of this program is that, you know, why be in the music industry studies program? It's because you're all the music industry now. Every one of you is doing it for yourselves. You're all building your own markets, and all rules of markets apply to those markets.
And if this is boring, if this is like, ugh, no.
Hobby. Then it's a hobby.
If you don't want to do this, or if it's, or, you know, and if week in and week out, it's, you know, this or the same, something's wrong. You know, this is like your blood pressure. We're talking about physical, right? They go in and they check that blood pressure. If this isn't continuing to go up, it means the entity is dying. Something is wrong. And two things can be wrong. The band sucks, or you got a bad manager. That's all, right?
Yeah.
If this stuff doesn't grow, the band sucks, or there's a bad manager. Because a good manager is going to grow this stuff. Unless they're strapped with a band where the band isn't playing along, or their music is just atrocious.
I mean, can you invent a scenario where those numbers would go up and the band wasn't going to succeed, or vice versa, where those numbers were going down and the band was succeed? I mean, it's impossible to kind of sketch out that scenario.
Those are my goals, right? That's what I look at every day. That's the blood pressure. That's the pulse of this little business that you're running. What else? You know, business stuff, I'm sure.
Well, you indicated, you know, gigs and CD sales and ticket sales. You know, we get email notifications when stuff sells through our online store. You know, I like to somebody in our world emails to people who are buying things and thanks them.
I think Google Alerts. You should set up a Google Alert for your band, right? And you should measure that, because what does that speak to? Brand equity. If people are talking about you, people are writing blog posts about you, whatever. And you notice, by the way, I did not put up here number of blogs posted by the band. Don't care. I don't think anybody cares. What?
It's Google Alerts.
Google Alerts, you can go to Google and set up with you, if you have a Google Gmail account, you can set up a alert for whatever you want. So you could set up an alert for your band's name, and at any time, the Google robots go out and they see that band name. At the end of the day, they'll send you a list of your band was mentioned here, there, everywhere.
They monitor blogs, even Twitter feeds now.
Yeah, Twitter feeds too. Everything except for Facebook, they monitor, you know. And it's really, you know, okay, so it's good just to see the numbers go up, but what else does this allow you to do? You see a band is written about you.
You know where people are talking about it,
Target, but what else can you do? Markets are what? Conversations.
Yeah.
Somebody blogged about you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Comment.
Comment. Hey,
Get on that
thank
blog.
you for doing this. Come to our site, get a free download, right? Markets are conversations.
Participate in the conversation, yeah. I mean, just to get in and comment is amazing. I mean, first of all, it's a great way to express gratitude, but it's also a great way to inject yourself into a conversation. It's about you, if you can.
What else should we mention?
Google Alerts,
You can look at RSS subscribers, but that implies that you've got some blogs, and I don't think that's real relevant.
that's about the
I
size.
mean, this is the pulse stuff, but each band should have a specific thing. I mean, well, I saw the coolest thing that I don't really like lounge music, but there's some band that did a USB stick in the form of a little, like, remember anybody watching the Brady Bunch and Greg had the little tiki thing when he was surfing and he went on a USB stick like that. I love that. And it's some tiki thing. They also have old school flight bags, like the stewardess used to have, and they put a CD in. Like, so, what's your thing? What's your merchandise? What's, you know, like, social object? Social object. What's your thing? You can measure that. Come on, somebody. What else can you measure? can think of stuff together, it's okay. Nobody? What else might we measure? This is rhetorical, I'm curious. Huh? Audience size at gigs, that's good. You know, you played wherever last time, you want that to increase. I mean, I'd like there to be stuff where you can, I guess to a degree there is, if you've got some embeddable widget, you can see how many places it's being shared. You can measure downloads. Downloads, yeah. You know. Huh?
Pre-sale.
Pre-sale stuff, great. I love pre-sale
Oh,
stuff.
that's great.
Once you get, and they're masters at it, once you get X number of people on your email list, you can say, hey, we're thinking about, you know, or we're selling this, it's not going to be available for 3 months, order yours now, and you get a signed one or something, you cover all your manufacturing costs.
Yeah.
God, it's stuff that I can't figure, you know, but, so these goals, this is real, I mean, I guess it's just pedestrian or something, but this is the business at best, right?
Again, it's converting it to science. I mean, you need to know, you need to have ways of measuring and controlling and giving yourself marching orders.
And I will say, you know, Google Analytics, I really, really, really want you guys to understand that. We should do a lesson. Maybe next week we can do 20 minutes on, just pull up some site and do Google Analytics on. Because that, you know, I did traffic here. But Google Analytics will tell you where that traffic's coming from. So much can be gleaned right from that. So you can say, okay, we want to have more referring sites. We want to have, you know, and then it leads to action. So again, on your project system, what are the steps to getting there? So if you know, as a manager coming in, and I'm mad at Sean for leaving, I'm mad at everybody, but if, you know, I don't know if they got a Twitter thing or not, but maybe they do. If they don't, the manager's job is to say, first off, do you want one? Will you use it? If the answer is no, don't manage it. If the answer is sure, we're confused, can you tell us how to do it? We're happy to try it. Set it up, right? Same with the Facebook fan page. So many bands out there have Facebook friend pages for bands. That's not good, right? The Facebook friend page limits you in so many levels. Most importantly, you want to do an email blast out to people, you got to do it in chunks of 150. You got 5,000 friends, that's going to take a while, right? And you get limited, I think, to 4,000, 5,000. So if you have Facebook friend pages and not fan pages, please change that. So this gap analysis. Once the goal is set, the gap between the goals and current performance must be determined, right? Measures have to be created to get determined, right? It's not perfect. You're not going to say, you know, we've got 100 and we want 200. You're not going to get there. But say the actual number is 250 this week, well, everybody's happy. We did something right. Do more of it. If you've got 100 and you get 110 the next week, something's wrong, right? We're not doing our email thing the right way. What can we do to change it? It really is just like a physical, a weekly physical, where you go, hey, look, your email's really suffering. You need more glucose in your diet or whatever. You need some different strategy to increase that. Otherwise, you just drift. I don't know how many emails we have. This week we had X, and this week we probably have X again. This is Billy keeps saying, you can't control what you can't measure. Measuring, tracking, you know. Yeah, talked about all this. But I gotta remember that chart. It sums up all the points.
Yeah.
I have a template for it. So, yeah, you know, once you figure out what the gap is, create a strategy. And don't mean this to sound, read like it's, hey, it's not meant to be that. Having a strategy, you know, this is rich, only for losers like me is fun, but coming up with strategies to go from here to here. I love that. I love it. Like that gets me back to that happy place where I'm actually creating.
Well, when you have a finite problem, I was going to say that is exactly what is really fun, because you have this finite problem and you say, how do we solve this problem, right? If it's getting more subscribers or more email addresses or what, you get to invent something. You get to be creative at that point. You get to just kind of go, well, how can we do this in a way that is fun, isn't going to be a burden to the audience? You know,
Well,
that's
that's
the
the values again. I mean, and you keep coming back to it, like, and you said it earlier, that's right, with, asking the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you put a problem, I mean, once you have an audience to talk to, even just a few hundred people, you can put a problem in front of them and say, we gotta get more email addresses. What can we do? Oh my God, the power of a few hundred brains to come up with something pretty cool is amazing. And I never get, whenever I put something out to the audience for discussion, there's a little bit of noise, but it's not what you would think. It's not this very noisy kind of like a bunch of shitty ideas and like somebody once in a while has a good idea. It's crazy. I have 10 good ideas that I wish I could do tomorrow. And then, a couple of things for people that didn't quite get what I was asking. Sorry, you have something.
Well, what are some of your good ideas that have been effective?
Well, I guess our most significant one was the idea that when Kristen wanted to excuse herself from her record deals, she said, no, I need to raise a certain amount of money every month to consider myself a producing artist. So what we had to say to the fans, what could we do that you'd be willing to pay for? And a long time ago, we got the answer, well, we'd really love to hear some demos and outtakes and things like that. We pay for that. We pay for a chance to see a sound check. We pay for a gig where it was just us, just the online community. We pay extra for that. We pay to come to the studio. We pay to get a song a month. If you put up a song a month, we'd subscribe to that. We've gotten so many good ideas from them. We'll often go to the kernel of an idea and then say, does that sound crazy? And then they come back to us with so many good ideas, with little adjustments that make it comfortable. And then it's a collaborative exercise. Then it's not, command and control. This is our new idea. All of you buy into it. It's like, hey, that thing we were talking about, we're going to do it. And everybody goes, hey, and we all do it. Sorry, yes?
Do y'all send it out to the people's emails, or do you put it up on your website?
Well, we host a message board, and the message board has become less and less important now that Twitter and Facebook are so facile that way. But the message board still lives as kind of a customer service center, where there's a fan community where they talk about all kinds of stupid crap, and we monitor that.
This is on.
Oh, sorry. No, they know. I say don't talk about stupid shit at my website because I can't pay attention. I want to know that if I check our fan forum, it's stuff that I need to read. I can't follow all the noise and the top 10 lists and all the crazy crap. So I just say, don't do that here. Do that on the fan site. And they're all go, oh, okay, cool. And then I get to read those posts and I get to respond to everything, or Kristen gets to respond to everything. So I put it out that way, but Kristen's also put things out in Twitter. A couple of months ago, in October, we were playing 2 gigs out in the southeast, Atlanta and Chapel Hill. And on our way to Chapel Hill, which was the first gig, the Atlanta gig canceled. And we were driving through Atlanta, and Kristen was saying, yeah, it's such a shame. We're going to be driving through Atlanta on the way home. We can't play a gig. And I said, we were driving down the highway, and I said, tweet that the Atlanta gig's canceled, but that you play one if somebody wanted to put one on, that we'd stop in Sunday night and play one. She was like, awesome. So she tweeted it. And in 3 hours, not only did we have a gig for Sunday night, which was an event, it became special because it was organized on the fly in public, but a whole bunch of bloggers picked up on it, and all these people who would have never paid attention to just a gig that we did were writing about it and telling everybody this is a super cool thing that we did. So we got all this benefit for putting it out into the audience. Aquarium Drunkard wrote about it, and Large Hearted Boy wrote about it, and Criminal Records and the Ames people wrote about it, and all of a sudden, you know, we not only didn't have to skip Atlanta, we got to play something that was like great customer service, great relationship building, and made us a lot of money.
It's interesting, listen, you talk about that's, you know, really, but one thing, these are the metrics now, think about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the weekly report card was sound scan, radio report,
Yeah.
and publicist report.
Yeah.
None of that matters.
No, none of it matters. SoundScan doesn't matter. Radio, spins, that doesn't matter.
You know, I was thinking also one other metric that eventually you can potentially get to is this idea of subscribers, not email subscribers, but, you know, like Kristen's Strange Angels, people that pay a certain amount per month for access, for special, you know, whatever.
Yeah, we try not to make it pay for access. We try to give everybody access, but what we like to do is give people a little extra or something special for playing the role of sponsor.
Right.
You know?
And so what I was thinking about, however you choose to do it, that's the right way. You know, my head's going, I was thinking, you know, at the beginning, this is hard. Now, if you're somebody like Kristen, you can probably get a groundswell right off the bat. But for people that are new trying to do this, you know, first you make the barrier of entry pretty low, maybe it's $50 or whatever, you make the value proposition high. I would, maybe it's crazy, but as soon as somebody subscribes, put them up on the site, profile them.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome our new subscriber, Jimmy.
Yeah.
He likes, you know, chickpeas and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the next day you do it, because then Jimmy's gonna send all of his friends to the
Absolutely.
site.
That's what viral is. I mean, just prestige, status.
That,
You know, we're gonna have a guest at
here's
forum
another thing you can do too.
in April.
This isn't going to work for all bands, but, you know, I don't know why more bands don't have a Flickr account where their fans can take pictures and then tag it to that thing and then suck it right onto the site. Kristen doesn't do this; she takes her own pictures, but
No, but we're gonna be bringing in tag content in the next web release which we're doing next week.
For a band that plays live, you want to encourage people to take pictures. You want to make it really easy for those to show up on your site. So you just embed a Flickr widget right on the site. People upload it to Flickr, they tag. You guys know what I'm talking about? You label the photo with a specific word, and it sucks it right in.
Same with YouTube.
YouTube videos too. And that's another thing we can measure. You should have a YouTube channel, right? And again, I don't think we need to say, oh, you got to make a video a week. Make videos when you know, have something to say. But you don't want to host the damn videos on your site, so you let YouTube carry that, and then you embed it in there. But you should be measuring subscribers to your YouTube channel, right? Indoor plays.
We're all on Next Big Sound.
Oh yeah.
NextBigSound.com.
So you can track everything. Right?
MySpace, Facebook, last thing.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's worth looking at if you haven't seen Next Big Sound. Cool. It's free. It's kind of surprising. I imagine they have who should we track? So, this is Vampire Weekend for the month of January, right? So you can look at their Twitter followers.
They're your clues for for the kinds of things you want to measure right there. Right?
But that's
Look at the
weird.
options.
Why do they only have 2 Twitter followers?
And read the content.
Yeah, something's true. You gonna do Kristen, Billy?
Yeah, try it.
Right, so you haven't done her Twitter yet, so yeah, you gotta go in and you can edit the stuff to follow. You just go down here, you edit the profile, and then you would add in twitter.com.
Compare bands.
Huh?
You can compare bands.
Right, you can line them up, but so. So this is basically measuring last, I think.
Yeah.
That's the number of plays. this is a free tool that you can throw up there. All right, so here's Imogene. So there's her Twitter.
That's so weird.
Something's funky here, but you get the idea, right? It's supposed to show you how, I don't know why your Twitter followers can go down like this. Something 25 new followers. Here she had 2,937 new followers on this day, right? So I don't know what's happened here.
And it looks like it's basically tracking Twitter account and everything else, right? That same thing.
But anyway, it's not a perfect system, but you get what you pay for. It is, I think, a good resource.
It's a good idea.
Good idea, yeah. Not perfect, but well written.
Another good tool is artistdata.com.
Yes. Okay. What strategies or designs are known? Action plans, right? So, kind of making the distinction between strategies and action plans, right? The strategy might be to go from 0 to 100. You need a strategy to go from 0 to 100 Twitter followers, but you need some action plans to actually do that. And what I'm trying to do is break this stuff down in little steps so you're never at a loss as a manager to go, what should I do today? And every day there should be these little routinized, institutionalized steps. Now the bad part about this, you will start doing this, you will start making headway, and the artist will drift off into the ether and think this stuff is happening by little elves, right? So one thing to remember, probably me. One thing to remember is management is terribly thankless, right? So you need to think about this. You guys have a slightly different relationship, but Jim, maybe not.
As a rule, I feel very appreciated, but as a rule, management is a thankless job.
Right. So you'll start here, and you'll do this in the band, and go, wow, this is great, and they'll see stuff happening, and you'll get to 10,000 or whatever. It doesn't stop for you, right? And you keep doing it. In the early days, the band's going to go, wow, we couldn't do this without you. Then all of a sudden, and I'm generalizing, but I've never had any experience that differs from this. You keep doing this every day, the band stops looking at these numbers and they start wondering what you're doing. Nothing's changed for you, right? But anyway, so the action plan is short run, day-to-day activities that just have to be done. You can create checklists for yourself if you need to. I'll do a lecture on getting things done. That's helped me a lot later in the semester. So long-run goals and grand strategies, you look at them too far out. Poor Sean with his 42 email people, if you look at, we need 10,000, which is maybe the number that you really need before you can do anything, I think. 42 to 10,000, forget about it. 42 to 200, okay? 200 to 400, all of a sudden you break it down into little chunks. You know, the problem with the 1,000 true fan model, which I like, that's insurmountable for a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Now forget it, fine, 50-50, you know? And so you've got to break it down.
Well, you can come up with a good idea that'll get you the next 50. You can come up with a good idea that'll get you another 50 after that. But too much at once.
So now we get back into this kind of value alignment stuff, right? The energy of the organization. I focus on this. My least favorite thing about the record business is the inevitable entropy that sets in, right? If you write your Thomas Pynchon, entropy is that thing where the energy and everything is kind of blue, right? And I always forget that it's a mistake to go down the Pynchon path. Right? About halfway down, you go the other way. But, you know, so the energy of the organization, right? Where are we moving it? Management. Can you get buy-in? Can you get the band to care? Do you guys care about this stuff?
Make another obscure literary reference. There's a Yeatsian idea.
Things fall apart.
That I think is something you need to recognize in management. There is a time when you are at the center of a spiral, right? And energy is very high, and it's a very sexy time to be in an enterprise. You know, the center of the spiral, the circles are very tight and small, and they begin to widen out. And then that's that entropy that we're talking about. Things do sort of become a little more diffuse. It's really important to find the next center of the spiral.
That's great. That's great.
The next time.
Bands love that, right? They
Yes.
need that next. That's great.
Absolutely. There always needs to be a new center of a spiral. You need to start a new one. And that's like one idea that leads to another idea, leads to another idea.
That's genius, and I'm so bad at that. Because I get caught up in the thing, no, we must do that. And you're right, psychologically, that artist needs, okay, yeah, that's all great, but that was yesterday, what's tomorrow, right? So, if you don't have this, the entity, the fire, the falcon, personal agendas and politics start to come in and finger pointing. You've got to have that unified thing, and it really will break down the personal agenda, always, right? Kissinger said that the politics at universities are so high because the stakes are so low. It can be true of bands too, right? If you don't have enough to occupy people's time, their natural proclivity is to start gossiping, pointing fingers, that type of stuff. So there's more to this than just setting goals. It really helps kind of unify.
Talk about blood balls. One time we were at a conference in San Diego, a radio conference, and they brought us on a backstage tour of the San Diego Zoo. And they talk about how they're really happy at the fact that their big cats, their big animals, are never psychotic. It's very easy to turn big cats psychotic when you have an animal in a cage with nothing to do. There are these things that zookeepers call enrichment items. And enrichment items are things like a frozen ball of blood they'll give a lion on a hot day. And they'll roll it in there. Or they'll give them a problem that they have to solve. Their food is behind something. These enrichment items. Fans need enrichment items. They need things to make it so that they're not doing the same thing every day. There are new wrinkles, new items in their environment.
There's a book there, Mr. Good. Blood balls.
Blood balls.
Right?
Don't fans need the same thing?
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Fans need the same thing too. What's the fans' blood
But
ball?
it's not gimmick.
It can't be a gimmick. Yeah. But that's an excellent point. But the two should be aligned.
Yeah.
Like the band should be excited about creating this thing, which will make the fans excited. You know, that's a
If you
great
don't
point.
give them like incentive to be a fan, then
They'll drift off to something else.
That's
That's exactly right. Exactly. And that can be, I go back to Kristen's pictures, you know, those little pictures mean more to me than a lot of other things. I just like looking at her pictures every day, right? It's a new thing. It doesn't make her any revenue, but I think
No, it was a fun thing for her to do. First of all, we didn't know that it would be very appealing to people. She just thought, interesting art project, one photo every day for a year. And as she did it, she found out that it meant a lot to people because it was like they got to peek through her eyeball. And they never knew where she was or what she was doing on a given day, but they would if they followed the photo blog. So the photo that you knew, she saw the thing and she took the picture. Some of them turned out to be beautiful, whatever. It was fun. It's a fun peek. You know, that's the other idea that we talk a lot about is this idea of giving people a view through the keyhole. Something really interesting in that, like looking into the studio through a keyhole.
that's what I meant about acting.
It's a real luxury that you have as the artist or artist manager, that you can actually, define what people see to a certain extent. You can kind of control the message in a reputable way, I would hope. But you can control the view that people have of the enterprise and of your world. But you can do it in with such facility that you can give people this sense that you're peeking at your world through a keyhole, and it's a very charming thing for fans, for audiences to be able to do.
So objectives, measurements, right? I think all this stuff should be pretty clear. I put a dog ear on your notes from this lecture because it is something that you'll want to reflect back on when you are preparing for your project. These action plans, I don't think anything's more important.
Well, yeah.
The day-to-day stuff, and I wanted to talk about it now while we talk about pre-contract stuff, because you have to conceive of this stuff before you would even conceive of working with the band. So now let's turn to thank
Yeah, first you're talking about the idea of what it is to be a manager. Then you're talking about a contract. If you have no idea what you can do to be the band manager, what the hell are you talking about dealing?
Are you gonna stick those on blackboard?
Yeah, I will stick with it. of the elements that need to be addressed in contracts. We'll look at it. We'll look at a specific contract. But I think it's worth going through this. We'll look at each one of them. So you don't have to write down the whole list. We'll get to go through all. All right. So appointment authority. It just tells you, that you artists are giving exclusive rights to this manager to do stuff, right? And the word exclusive is important. There are examples of people having more than one manager. Sometimes they'll have one in the UK. Sometimes, how is that? What's your take on that?
Different strokes. I know that people used to have a business manager and personal manager. I don't know. Right now,
we should talk about. We should make that distinction. Typically, a business manager is kind of like an accountant. The bills come through. A personal manager is the manager that you guys are thinking.
dealing with creative endeavors, personal dynamics, things like that.
I'm talking more about like if you got a UK manager versus a US manager.
Right. I think that if that's the construct that's in place from the get-go, then it's maybe valuable, but it's a weird thing to introduce into the relationship. If you ask me, I know when the Pixies did that, it was because they didn't want their U.S. manager to have as much responsibility. But anyway, the important thing here, I think, is not only exclusivity, but because you have to, yes, there can only be one person at this, at the helm, but it's also this issue that certain specific tasks that you own as a manager, you have to know that when you call the agent, they haven't already fielded a call from the band with some weird query or some wish list item or something. You have to be able to manage your own relationships, the relationships on behalf of the band. Now, you're also responsible for engaging these people. You're responsible for engaging the booking agent, the attorney, the CPA. Sometimes you inherit these people, sometimes you don't. I don't know about you, but a lot of times it's rare, in my opinion, in my experience, for the band to not care at all about who's doing those things.
They tend to care.
It's not the managers.
It's too much stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a little dance you have to do to sort of be the guy in charge. Before you fire an agent, you're going to want to cover that with the band. You're going to fire an agent before you hire an agent. Cover that with the band as well.
So you guys may think that this is like I reference Amanda's manager again. Emily was my student, 5-6 years ago, and she started as road manager for Justin Dolls. Now she's managing them. She manages market shows and comedians. Brendan Benson. She manages Family of the Year. So you can go pretty fast from being, okay, I just learned about the management to being, somebody that is dealing with accountants, booking agents, all these things. So through that unified voice is real important. Just to know. So it's fine business manager, that's sort of account. Road manager is the person that really the role of the road manager is to make sure the band shows up and gets paid. Kind of, I don't want to be reductive about it, but if they don't do that, it fails.
Yeah. Yeah, I think advancing gigs is an underappreciated
Explain
skill.
advancing gigs.
And believe me, if you don't know, you're not alone. There are so many bands that work at a kind of at a high level and don't advance their shows. But there is this, the practice of calling the gig you're going to play next week and covering all the details ahead of time. Finding out, knowing the lay of the land, finding out what the merch rate is going to be, negotiating a new one if it's appropriate, finding out what the pre-sales are, what kind of sound equipment is there for you, what the staging is like, everything's to the spec that is in your contract for the show, your tech rider, your hospitality rider. Stupid stuff like, what's the parking situation? Is it going to be miserable for us to park our van and trailers? What the catering situation is? Are you going to feed us dinner? Are you going to pay us money to go out and buy our own dinner? There's a checklist of 20, 25 things that I think make it so that your gig it runs smoothly and contains no surprises. And you'd be amazed at how much better and more effectively longer you can tour with much less burn if you have somebody advancing your gigs. You go in there with, into a known world instead of an unknown world. The potential for stress is so greatly reduced. And I know this because I happen to be a road manager as well, and I consider that one of the arts of road management is a good advance. You develop relationships from that first call, a week out, and you say, if there's any issue with me, if anybody needs to talk to me at all, here's my cell number, here's my email address. You walk in the door, it's great. You go, oh, are you Nigel? Hey, what's up, Nigel? And immediately you start out on the right foot. One of my favorite days in the music industry is the day on the road. I love showing up at the gig, getting to know the local crew, seeing the lay of the land, knowing what the room is like, knowing what the backstage is like, even if it stinks, knowing, seeing what the food thing is like. You all get together, you sort out the technical thing, you work out the staging, you work out the sound, you talk to the lighting engineer, you get the lighting stuff done. You all break for dinner, or sometimes in Europe you eat dinner together, and you all get to know one another a little bit. Or you reconvene at the showtime when people are filtering in. You play the show. Everybody does their job. It's this intensive little exercise. The show's over. Everybody leaves. And you're breaking down, and there's this weird bonhomie that comes from breaking down your gear and talking to the sound engineer and coiling cords together, and everybody's just hanging out. And then at the end of the night, if you played the show right, everybody hugs goodbye. And the next day you start the next day doing the same thing. It's this beautiful way of life, but it starts with a good advance. And I think advancing gigs is incredibly important.
Also, I think it's probably the gig that some of you will be most likely to get early on.
With a new band.
A road band gig.
Because it's management in a microcosm.
If you kick ass at that,
that's how Emily did it.
That's how Emily did it.
Yeah, Emily was a road man, yeah.
I think, and people sometimes, Stuart Ross, the waitress road manager, like he like you was one of those guys that do a waitress advance outside. He's just an art form, it's like they do it right every time.
We toured, we did this tour with Brantley Phillips and John Doe, and I noticed like those guys never advanced gigs, and then when we show up and the people in the venue are like, hey, what's going on? They're like, how do you know these people? Well, we said, you guys play these gigs every year. How do you not know these people? I think Bill Ramey's a great road manager. Brings a lot of value as a front of house engineer, and he is just that guy. Everybody loves Bill Ramey. Beastie Boys manager, Smashing Pumpkins.
So other things we talked about this is what you typically see in contracts. You can see how kind of vague it is. Represent artists, negotiations, supervise professional engagements. You know that doesn't say book, okay? Cooperate and supervise booking, but not be the book itself. If you get up on this is where you get in trouble. Anytime you see the word reasonable in contracts, there's a reason lawyers use that word, because it's a soft word. What is reasonable? My definition of reasonable is different from yours. This is one of the few things that an artist can come back to a manager and claim breach. You weren't available. I couldn't get you on the phone. You took on too many damn clients. You stopped being available. The manager will say, hey, I was reasonably available. And you say, well, what does that mean? And you fight that, right? Range means power of attorney, you don't know that you want to grant that as a band too early. And as a manager, I don't know that you want to push for it. That can come.
You can do it for instances.
That's right.
When you need to. If you're in France and you know that your manager's going to have to sign your tax return, then grant power of attorney for a period.
So compensation, this is the tricky one. And probably the actual percentage, I worry about less. I think 15 is just a default, right? And I think you're comfortable, should be comfortable starting there as a manager, as a band, comfortable paying that. Gross income, that's not always true. Not necessarily do gross on gigs, for instance. Typically, Trent Reznor's student was the manager taking gross on gigs when he should have been taking net. Be clear on this? the band gets paid $100,000, but it costs them $50,000 to get to the gig and everything else. The manager typically, correct me, typically will commission off of 50, not off of 100, right? Tour support, this is less and less relevant because nobody's paying tour support. But there used to be a time where if you were signed to a label, the band would get tour support from a label. And tour support is supposed to cover shortfall. And that means you're getting $1,000 a week from gigs. Your income's $1,000 a week, but it's costing you $2,000 a week to stay on the road. You submit this shortfall to the label. The label goes, okay, we'll write you a check. Okay, but why they would do this, do this? The manager should be commissioning that tour support money. That's keeping them off the road. Same with recording advances. This gets really tricky too. You sign to a label. The label gives you an advance. They don't stipulate personal versus recorded advance. Here's 100 grand. Here's 50 grand. Here's 5 grand. Do you as manager take that, or do you take what's left over after they make the record? Speak all of these.
You know, I mean, tour support, you would never ever commission in a million years. Recording advances.
No, I've seen managers try.
I know, they tried, yeah. I mean, and I remember tour support when it wasn't shortfall support, where it was like, payment, or it was payment, tour support. Recording advances, I mean, I used to go around and around with managers when I wasn't the manager about this. You know, you can't commission a $100,000 record advance if you're supposed to make a record with most of the money. You know, how are you going to, you're going to take 15% of $250,000 and they spend $200,000 making a record? It's crazy. So generally, it used to be a recording fund, right? It was a fund so that it was the agreement was implicit. You would make a record with most of the money and whatever was left over you could keep. I remember REM telling us back in the day, you know, just make this record for as little as possible and take the rest of the advance and throw it in the bank. Maybe all the money you ever see from the label, and they were right. But there was always this sort of pressure to make the record for as much, you know, spend as much as you needed to on the record because you were hoping to deliver a top-rate product, you know, top-notch product. But sometimes managers would take a percentage of the advance. They'd say, well, this money came in, and then, you know, but reputable managers, in my opinion, would take only a commission off what was left over. If at the end of the $200,000 record, the band is going to bank $50,000, commission the $50,000.
So this is where we get in, and this is, you know, the world's changed. If we go back to this grid here, if you've got 1,000 subscribers, each paying $100 a year for whatever, there's your 100,000 coming in. The manager's doing all of that. I don't know that 15% is enough. You know, that may be where the manager goes, hey guys, this is kind of my business here. I've put this all together. Maybe 20, maybe 25. One way or the other, you need to, in these conversations, say, we are going to commission off the publishing side of it up here. That gets weird too, right? You know, if you get a sync, you know, so you've got money coming in that way, you're probably going to commission that. You're working with a band, someone puts the song in a movie, you get 50 grand on the map, or 10 grand on the master side, 10 grand on the publisher side, you probably can commission 20 grand. However, the movie goes to TV, performance royalties are generated. Are you going to commission the writer's share, the public?
Writers shares don't get commission, in my experience. You know, you've been through this. You know the writer's share, the publisher share, right? So, writer's share, you know, that performance money, the PRO money, EMI ASCAP, and when it goes directly to the writer, nobody touches that money before it goes to the writer. You know, Snyder always says, if somebody touches your money, you're not going to get all of it. In this case, you know, it would be, to me, it would be a pretty audacious thing to commission a writer's share from a PRO.
But you're gonna, I mean, so many of you will be managing bands as they're starting out, something will happen. So, you know, a song will get used somewhere. And all of a sudden, you've been working with this band for a year or two, you've made little to no money, and then all of a sudden, $100,000 comes floating in. And everyone, this will happen to one of you. And you're gonna look at each other and go, what do we do? You know, and the fight begins.
So that's another question of expectations, right? You know, you need to know that everybody understands what that means. That that's not just $100 grand in the bank necessarily. That there are expenses and commissions and things that happen to that money. You know, there is a process of education that I think is necessary to do, and in order to manage that relationship, that band, that artist-manager relationship requires a lot of. I mean, you talked about developing an awareness and a sense of who we are as people. Each of you really needs to know the other's world to some extent.
Yeah, right.
If you don't, there's going to be a massive disconnect. All of a sudden, values are not aligned, expectations are not aligned. There needs to be sympathy and awareness of both worlds.
So, I mean, we're talking about the publishing side. You said you turned down publishing deals, so you're essentially self-published, so you're acting as a minister.
We have admin deals.
Oh, you do?
We have a 10% admin deal through Bug, and we use strictly confidential in Europe to collect.
Okay, so you don't even deal with that?
No, and you know, and if they get us a sing, there's an enhanced split. Admin plus, yeah. And then, you know, and like we just got that guy covered. Yeah, so it was on Grey's Anatomy. They didn't. That's an interesting thing. They didn't originate that license, so they didn't commission at a higher rate. I mean, they didn't take an extra look.
You know, I mean, if you got a relationship with them.
Well, we knew the way it came. But that's a manager's perspective. You know, I was in touch with the other manager ahead of time. I knew what she was doing. I knew whose world.
Right.
You know, who was promoting the track to what music we're running.
They got it, but yeah, you have commission.
No.
So if you're working for free, you know, as managers do all the time. Time of payment, it depends on the band. When are you as manager gonna take that commission, right? And, you know, if you got a band on the road all the time, which is what all of us have, you know, weekly, every other week, whatever. If you don't, there's probably a lot of money floating in, but you gotta figure out at some point when you're gonna. Reimbursement of management expenses, right? You will have these. Okay? If your job is to set up a website, you're really gonna wait around for the band to give you $10 to register your domain name? No, you're gonna do it. And then you're gonna keep track of it. $10, registered domain name. The question becomes, at what point do you know, at what limit can you just spend stuff before you have to go to the band and say, look, I want to spend $1,000 of either my own money or the band's money to, you know, do whatever, get a website built, right? The band may not want to reimburse you for something they didn't approve. They got to talk through all this stuff.
You can easily imagine a case where you say, well, for anything more than $200, I have to get your approval. We have to agree mutually that we can spend this money.
And we should talk about like intra-band agreements, that stuff, through authority on that operating. So there's several levels.
Used to be phones.
Yeah, phone calls used to be crazy. Exclusivity. Artist agrees to be exclusively managed by the manager. As Billy said, you can't have a lot of different voices. The manager, however, does not typically represent only one artist at a time. It's hard to make a living doing that, right? But, to go back to that appointment of authority, you gotta be reasonably available. You got 10, 15 clients, you're gonna screw something up, undoubtedly. I've always said three or four is about the most you could possibly do. That's what I mean.
You're a business, and they're your customers to a certain extent. So, you know, how do you maintain good business practices? How do you treat your customers, clients, or vendors?
Yeah, don't talk through this. Term, right? So managers want a long term because they know it's going to take a while to get the money back. They want a short term because they want to test stuff out. Your business is long. You get into this idea of what we used to call, right, go fattening frogs for snakes. We would take a band, build them up, and then a bigger label would grab them. We would let them know. Happens to managers all the time. Some young manager puts in all the legwork, does all the grunt work, gets the band going, and just on the eve of that band breaking, Irving Azoff shoots in and goes, hey kid, you know, it happens all the time. We're going to talk about ways to kind of lessen the issue, but you know, most of the time, it's so hard to enforce these terms. They're going to find their way in all cases of the contract. Most tend to be a year that just kind of automatically extends, but you know, neither party's dispositive, right? You can either you put kind of like a record deal, right, where a record label's coming off or otherwise. A manager can go, I don't want to do this anymore, quit. A artist can go, you know what, I hate you, fire, right?
It's like a lease. I mean,
It's not paying goodwill.
it's not paying your rent. You know, you leave. Bad feelings are there, and certain liabilities are there. I mean, I think that what's important. I think you mentioned earlier today. You know, Sunset Club.
Yeah, we're talking about something
Really important. I mean, you just need a way of dealing with the breakdown.
That's the most important part. So, I mean, the term, none of finance way to a contract, we'll get to sunset shortly.
Yeah.
Right now. So, sunset clause, probably, you know, the most important kind of clause you're going to find in the agreement. If the relationship breaks down, manager quits, or the artist fires the manager, there needs to be a period of time where the money still flows, but at an ever decreasing rate in sunset. So say you figured out you're commissioning off of X, Y, and Z, 15%, the relationship ends. For 3 months thereafter, 6 months after, whatever, you get that same 15%. From month 4 through whatever, you get 12%. It just gradually goes down to 0. And the reason you do this, it's happened to me, it's happened to lots of people I know. You get a band right to this point where they're about to make a big deal. You're finally going to get a payday, and the band goes, that don't work for me. Wait a second. You know? And they go, but you got this stuff, and you go, cool.
Let somebody else work.
Let somebody else deal with your tail ass. But I'm going to get paid, right? And I'm going to get paid for the work. And that sunset term should increase after the amount of years you work. That can be a real problem for the artist that gets double commissioned. Because most of the time the artists go, they're not going to leave you for themselves, or just to manage themselves. They're going to go somewhere else. Now the new manager's going to go, well, I need my 15%. You got a full contract to afford. So the poor artist is left paying 25, 30% for some period of time.
The new manager's argument will be, but there's going to be a much bigger pie.
Yes, a bigger pie for all of us, right? Other ways to avoid this, though, much less relevant, I think, blackout. So you could say, look, you fire me, you can't be with anybody else for some period of time, and during that period of time, I can keep making my money. Sunset's more important. And then, you know, obviously it dies. You get into the big estate. You're going to keep paying the estate forever, even though they're not doing it. But the sunset clause underlines it. Really can't stress the importance. This gets scary too, you know, disputes. This will happen. You will break down. You will stop talking to each other. Letters will start to be written. Lawyers will be brought in, right? You want to have something in there that says, look, before you sue me, you gotta negotiate. Be careful of this, right? And non-lawyers screw this up all the time. First of all, there's a difference between mediation and arbitration. I'm not going to go into that. But this can really hurt you. If you agree to an arbitration clause, it means essentially you'll never get your case in front of a jury. Okay? So you put an arbitration clause in an agreement. And if you're a manager, you may want that arbitration clause in. Because juries tend to have a lot of sympathy for the poor artists, right? David and Goliath. But it can be the other way too. You get some powerful artist and they screw with the manager. In any case, just know if you put an arbitration clause in there and it's binding arbitration, you can't get it in front of a jury. You get settled by an arbitrator immediately, right? So people will just gloss right over this and then they go, I'm going to sue you, and if this gets in front of a jury, and the lawyer goes, I have to get this front of a jury. You sign that right away. Is that clear?
I wish there was an arbitration clause.
Sorry?
I know a deal or two where I wish there was an arbitration.
Sure. Rather than included in the law.
Yeah, but no, I think that these features, the sunset clause, you know, it's sort of dealing with potential disputes is so important just because it's a quality of life long term. You will have relationships go south. You will. It will happen that nothing goes on forever, and you can never tell the whys or wherefores to a relationship disintegrating. Just cover your asses, but know that you can live. There's a mechanism in place to let things go to hell.
That's all. Have something in the agreement so that when it goes to hell, as it will, point back to it. This is the process to resolve. Warranties and indemnifications. This can be a problem too. If you're manager, you're about to manage some band, you need to make sure there's no contract still in force. I've seen this too. Oh yeah, I have this manager, I don't ever talk to him anymore. If you hear that as a manager, right, for a bunch of reasons. A, the value is probably all whack. Second, that manager, the first manager, is going to be laid in wait for you to come in, do a bunch of crap, and then sue you. You stepped in, you built the value up, it's all my money, right? That artist has to warrant that there's no other contract in place. Accounting, you've got to be able to audit manage. Artists should be able to audit manage. Look, play first, right? But business manager, pretty basic boilerplate stuff. Jurisdiction, this can be important. If there is a lawsuit, where? Certain jurisdictions are much more favorable than others to various parties. Even beyond that, if you're a manager in New Orleans, New Orleans is a weird thing, civil law, but you're a manager in New Orleans, your band's in New York, you sue each other, who's going to hear the case? Are you going to have to travel to New York to do it? You want the band to come down to New Orleans. And the laws in New Orleans may not be in your favor, so you need to look through that. Modification, obviously, you can't change the damn contract unless everybody agrees with it. Assignment, really important. I see this happen a lot. I'm sure it's happened to you, Billy. You've been approached by it. You're a sole proprietor as a manager. You're managing an artist or two. All of a sudden, Red Lighter Network comes in and says, hey, you're doing a good job, but you've got no health care. You're making $35 grand a year. We'll double that, but you've got to assign your management contract with this artist to us. If you don't have an assignment clause in it, at best, you go back to the band and try and get them to agree with it. At worst, they can queer the whole deal. No assignment clause. Hey, we want to be managed by you, not Red Lighter Network. Right? So as a manager, you want to have that assignment clause where you can take this deal, assign it to another company.
It's like being a songwriter with publishing. You want to be able to control your publishing, sign it, sell it. This is your business as a manager. You want to be able to be flexible.
Definitions of, it can be important. There'll be certain things in there. Definition of a master, or how to pick a master, and all that stuff. But just any ambiguous word. Questions?